And welcome into the Most Accurate Podcast. My name is Anthony Stalter. Alongside me, as always, is John Paulsen. And John, what an honor this week. I have an opportunity to do not one but two podcasts as we recorded the Wednesday edition of TMAP. So appreciate you joining me again today.
Thanks for filling in on Wednesday for John Daigle, and looking forward to talking some football. I got the morning sun here coming in on this side. I guess it is. I don't know. It's on my right arm. Unusual podcast setup at my house, but and I'm going to see the Who tonight, so I'm excited about that. So it's a update for all the listeners out there.
John, you are a major music fan. Have you seen the Who before?
I have not seen the Who before. We had tickets to see them in Irvine mid-aughts, and for some reason I sold them. I don't remember why, but we couldn't go, or I decided to do something else or whatever, but I sold the tickets and kind of excited to see them. They're playing about 15 minutes from my house, so very convenient. Taking Max, he loves Eminence Front. I think that's a great track. I love it as well, but there's a number of bangers for the Who, so looking forward to it.
Nice. All right. Well, let's dive into the podcast today. As usual, we'll go over John's Thursday night takeaways. We'll get into this week's biggest fantasy storyline, starting off with Jamar Chase and that injury. Kind of wrap things up with an injury roundup. Then we'll get into our sleeper sneaky start of the week, and then get into some breakout receivers that might be popping in Sam and John's model. But we do start off with the Thursday night matchup. And last night, John, it wound up being really I don't want to say the backups, but, Isaiah Likely goes off because Mark Andrews, he starts the game. He's active. You found that out about an hour and a half before. So everybody that's got a Mark Andrews is breathing a sigh of relief, but then he goes out of the game after only catching 3 passes for, I think it was 33 yards. Isaiah Likely is the one that goes off. Gus Edwards also concedes some of, his time to Kenyon Drake. And then you've got, Baltimore really winning a game that they fell behind. And sometimes game script doesn't really apply to them when they get behind because they like to run the ball. I know those are some of your takeaways. So what's your advice for fantasy managers moving forward that have Mark Andrews and Gus Edwards and some of these Ravens players that got hurt?
Yeah, it was a little tough day yesterday for my FFPC team. We had Jamar Chase as our first round pick, Mark Andrews as our second round pick. We did pick up Isaiah Likely last waivers this week, so just in case we needed to use him, so at least we have him if Mark Andrews goes out for a little while. He does have 10 days to get back. The frustrating thing, I think, is that Andrews got off to a really good start in that game and was likely to have a big game, especially with the Ravens falling behind and the Bucs secondary getting a little looser as the game went on. I just can't believe that they won. Like the Ravens losing Mark Andrews, losing Rashad Bateman, who had 1 target, goose egg, still managed to pull out the victory and was pretty much in control by the fourth quarter and turned the Bucs into, trying to play catch up. Props to the Baltimore defense. The Bucs offense still looks like it's having some issues, even though they did score the first touchdown. Tom Brady's yardage was up to 325 and a touchdown, but it doesn't look like the Bucs offense that we've been used to the last few years. So I guess in the short term, Isaiah Likely, is a possible streamer. We'll see if Andrews is able to get back for week 9. But 6 for 67 or 6 for 77 and a touchdown on 7 targets. He's pretty good. He had 59 for 912 and 12 touchdowns as a senior at Coastal Carolina. Gus Edwards did leave the game with a hamstring injury. Not shocking after coming back from the ACL. So I think Kenyon Drake takes over as the lead back with Justice Hill backing him up in the short term. We'll see. I think J.K. Dobbins is on IR, so might be 3 weeks here, depending how bad this hamstring injury. Doesn't sound like it's too bad, but Gus Edwards needs some time to let his body rest. So those are my takeaways, I think, from last night's game. Nothing earth-shattering. Frustrating for Mark Andrews owners for sure, or managers for sure. And Rashad Bateman, anybody that started him has got to be really frustrated heading into this week.
Yeah, it was the night of pivots, right? It was the pivot off of Mark Andrews going with Isaiah Likely. The pivot off of Gus Edwards would be Kenyon Drake. The pivot off of Rashad Bateman would be Devin Duvernay. I mean, it was just one of those nights from a fantasy perspective. But good win for Baltimore. And my 2 cents on this, John, with the way that Lamar Jackson likes to attack the middle of the field, I think Isaiah Likely, if you can get clarity on Mark Andrews' injury going into a game, I think Isaiah Likely is for real. And Kenyon Drake had a big game a couple of weeks ago against the Giants, so it's not like he's incapable either. All right, let's get into Friday's injury, the biggest fantasy injuries of note. And you had mentioned this before. Jamar Chase, just a really tough injury for the Bengals, a Bengals team that was coming around offensively over the last nearly 3 weeks. They've looked pretty good. Jamar Chase, multiple touchdowns in one of those games. So he's dealing with a hip injury, according to Adam Schefter of ESPN. It's expected to sideline him 4 to 6 weeks and makes him a prime candidate, according to Schefter, for injured reserve. So you've got a couple of different options now. You get T. Higgins, you've got Tyler Boyd, but I imagine, John, that these guys are going to be on rosters already. So Jamar Chase fantasy managers like yourself, what's your recommendation?
Yeah, it's tough. I had to do my subscriber AMA on the Discord right after this. So I just scrambled to get the projections updated for Chase being out, and then hopped on the Discord AMA, and it was kind of processing my feelings on the subject as it went on. It's just so demoralizing to have, and we don't even know about this injury until Thursday. Heading into the week. Didn't seem like he was injured in the game. Came out okay. Nothing really about it until now. So the question is, I've seen some reports that he's seeing specialists. I saw something saying that they think that he will heal faster because he's built different. I'm paraphrasing.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens here. It's week 8. They have week 9 against Carolina. Then they have a bye. So the bye is coming at a good time for Jamar Chase managers and for the Bengals and for Jamar Chase. Because conceivably, if he does heal fast and it's a 3-week issue, he might be back week 11. So it's not maybe as despondent. If you can make it through and do okay, keep yourself alive over the next few weeks, you can maybe get him back for week 11 Pittsburgh, week 12 Tennessee, week 13 Kansas City, week 14 Cleveland, week 15 Tampa. These are a lot of good favorable matchups where if Chase is healthy, he can do very well. As for the Bengals, it's a slight downgrade for Joe Burrow, but you're still starting him. I mean, the quarterback landscape right now is there's the haves and the have-nots, and he's definitely still a have. He's got T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd and Hayden Hurst. And I think the biggest bump in playing time will go to Mike Thomas. Mike Thomas, I was looking at him yesterday. He has yet to gain more than 132 yards in a season, and he's 28 years old. So this is his big chance. We'll see how he does, but he's been the number 4 receiver there this season, and we'll see if he's able to capitalize at all. But I certainly think that T. Higgins is now just a locked-in wide receiver 1. Tyler Boyd I have him ranked as a wide receiver 2, like 15 or 16 right now in half PPR this week, which is way higher than usual. He's usually in the 40s, as a third receiver there. And then Hayden Hurst is now, I think, locked in as a tight end 1, whereas before, you were looking at him as like a high end tight end 2, low end tight end 1. I think now I think I got him at 8 this week. Definitely those guys get bumps. You might see Joe Mixon with a few more catches as well, but there's plenty of weapons here for Joe Burrow. I haven't really downgraded him too much based on this.
All right, John, moving forward, we have a trade to react to. Kadarius Toney, the last 2 weeks we've had trades to react to, but Kadarius Toney goes from the New York Giants to the Kansas City Chiefs. Interesting deal. So Kadarius Toney, former first-round pick of the Giants out of Florida, and he just fell out of favor with the new regime in New York. So he now moves to Kansas City, where better fit certainly for a wide receiver. However, you do have Juju Smith-Schuster. You've got McCall Hardman, who caught a couple of touchdowns last week or scored a couple of touchdowns last week. Marquez Valdez-Scantling. So you've got multiple receivers there. He joins a pretty crowded depth chart. But from an upside standpoint, a much better passing game. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't feel like this is a huge upgrade for him fantasy wise. You're like, if he were healthy and playing for the Giants, the sky's the limit for the number of targets that he could potentially earn, given the nature of that Giants receiving core right now, how banged up they are. Wan'Dale Robinson is now enjoying that sort of role, like increased role. Darius Slayton is getting 6 or 7 targets. Like, if Kadarius Toney were healthy, I don't know what's going on with his hamstring. There's been debate about whether or not he's healthy. I think on Twitter he said that he is not injured. So we'll see what happens and how the Chiefs decide to treat him. But heading to Kansas City, in theory, yes, much better quarterback, but much bigger passing pie, all that. But you have Travis Kelce, you have Juju Smith-Schuster, MVS, Mecole Hardman, who's been tough to usurp for Sky Moore, who's a talented guy, who's kind of, I wouldn't say he's the same or a similar player as Toney, but kind of, you could see them if you squint hard enough that they're both, diminutive, quick type players. But Toney's game, I mean, Sky Moore's a really good route runner, has not been able to get on the field. Kadarius Toney is he's not the greatest route runner in the world right now, but has that ability, open field ability, to make people miss, break tackles, kind of a Deebo light type of a role possibly. But I see him right now as the number 4 in that depth chart at best. Maybe he can work his way into and eat into Mecole Hardman's snaps, but MVS does something completely different. He runs clear out routes and deep routes, and Juju's coming on as the top slot receiver there and is doing well the last couple of weeks. So I wouldn't run out and get Toney. I wouldn't mind adding him if I had a spot on my bench, but it's not like I'm thinking that he's going to be a league winner or anything with this move to Kansas City. It's just not great. And I think in with the Giants, it just solidifies Wan'Dale Robinson as probably the best fantasy asset there, other than Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, go figure, right? I mean, you never really thought that was going to be Wan'Dale Robinson, but you're absolutely right. He's really taken over as the Giants wide receiver 1. Moving on to some running backs, Ezekiel Elliott is expected to miss Week 8 with a sprained MCL. This opens up a great opportunity for Tony Pollard managers to play him, have the utmost confidence that he'll be the featured back. And Dallas, despite Dak Prescott returning last week, John, they stuck with the run. So where do you have Pollard ranked right now in your rankings?
I got him at 8. Like, I somehow missed this Elliott news, the sprained MCL, the day that it happened. So the next morning I was looking and found it. I was like, oh my, like, this is one of our running backs on our FFPC team, trying to just get through the next month or so. But it was a really nice matchup against the Bears. So if you take him out of the equation, which he was at practice, like working with the trainers, but it's very unlikely that he's going to be able to play effectively with a sprained MCL. When you have a sprained MCL, you really have a partially torn MCL. So he needs time to heal. Maybe he plays through it, but if he does, he's not going to be great. And they probably are going to lean on Pollard anyway. So I think Pollard's a really good start for anybody. I mean, this is what you've been waiting for if you drafted Tony Pollard. I mean, you're hoping for Elliott to miss a game or two or whatever, and you get Pollard in a RB1 role in a tasty matchup like this one against the Bears. I think he's a must start this week.
All right, Deebo Samuel did not practice Wednesday, did not practice Thursday. Adam Hutchinson expects him to miss. Juwan Jennings did not practice Wednesday or Thursday. So you and I talked a little bit about Ray McLeod on Wednesday, but for those that did not catch that podcast, John, what are your thoughts on starting Ray McLeod this week with those 2 injuries?
Yeah, I mean, if Jennings is also out, certainly McLeod moves up into that number 3 role in that passing game, as far as we can tell. I mean, obviously you got Christian McCaffrey there now too, so that gobbles up some passing, some targets. But I just wanted to say it's really nice having Adam Hutchinson, our injury expert, on staff. He does a great job laying out the injuries for the week, and he's always been available to me in Slack when I have questions regarding the rankings and who might play and who won't play. and he doesn't think Deebo is going to play. He might be shut down for a couple of weeks here, so we'll see. If he's out, if Jennings is also out, McLeod becomes a sneaky start, and you're probably seeing a lot of Brandon Ayuk and George Kittle and McCaffrey in that passing game. But then McLeod is that sneaky play that people aren't really going to be thinking about.
Let's move on to the Week 8 injury roundup. This is where I'll throw just a slew of injuries at John. He'll kind of break it down guy by guy. But David Njoku, we just talked about Adam Hockenson suggested he'll be out 4 weeks, but Njoku has not ruled himself out for Monday Night Football, but he didn't practice on Wednesday or Thursday, John. Darren Waller, limited on Wednesday, limited on Thursday. He's been a frustrating player for fantasy managers this season. Russell Wilson will start in London for the Broncos. Bronco country, let's ride. Ryan Tannehill, limited on Thursday. It looks like the youngster Malik Willis was getting some first-team reps. They drafted him, I believe, in the third or fourth round this year. So they could be looking at a rookie that does have some rushing ability, John. Michael Thomas did not practice Wednesday or Thursday for the Saints. TJ Hockenson, limited Thursday for the Lions. DK Metcalf did not practice Wednesday or Thursday. Again, our injury expert, Adam Hutchinson, thinks he'll miss 2 to 3 weeks with a patellar tendon injury. And then finally, Mike Williams, the wide receiver for the Chargers, he's expected to miss 4+ weeks with a high ankle sprain. So we're dealing with a lot of injuries to key players or key positions.
Yeah, and I'll run through these quick to see who would benefit. I mean, I don't think Njoku plays. I'm leaving him out of the rankings. If he does play, Adam really thinks he's going to be limited and not very good. So it would be way ahead of schedule for him to come back and play. Harrison Bryant is the pivot there. It's tough to play him not knowing if Njoku is going to be active, though, because it's a Monday night game, and that makes it a little difficult. But I think Bryant is a decent sneaky start regardless of whether or not Njoku's active, just because he might be limited, Waller looks like he might be back. I'm getting ready to put him back in the rankings. Top 10 option whenever he's available, but he just hasn't had the year that we were hoping for. I think, and we were a little dubious that the Raider passing game was going to be able to support all these fantasy players with Devontae Adams there now. I mean, he gobbles up so many targets. Hunter Renfrow has suffered. Waller's workload has suffered. And then you have Matt Collins, who's actually doing better than expected. So he's still a tight end one when he's active, but it's just not what it was. Russell Wilson, it's great to see those high knees in the aisle on the plane. It worked out for him. I mean, we make fun of him, but man, he kept himself limber on that flight, and he's ready to play. Looks like he's going to be back. Ryan Tannehill, I still have him in the rankings. He has a reputation for playing through injuries and being really tough, so we'll see if he's able to. But it sounds like he's got a pretty bad ankle injury. Skeptical whether or not he's going to start. I did in my 2-quarterback, Scott Fishbowl. It's actually a super flex league. Picked up Ellinger to give myself a third option at quarterback because I have Aaron Rodgers and Ryan Tannehill quarterback. Michael Thomas, I got a question yesterday in the AMA about him, what to do with him. I don't know. Like he just continues to sit out, and we don't know when he's going to be back. And a foot injury is weird too. Like that's a tough one. That could be any number of things. We don't have all the details on it. So it's not like saying, oh, he's got an ankle injury or he's got a sprained MCL or he's got a hamstring injury where we have, timelines for it. Foot could be any number of things, and we just don't know. TJ Hockenson looks like he'll be back. Metcalf probably going to be out 2 to 3 weeks, as Adam mentioned, with the patellar tendon injury. Marquise Goodwin is a good pivot there. If you are, in a deeper league and don't have a lot of options at receiver, he's stepping into that role. He did a good job last week, and Geno Smith's playing well. Mike Williams likely going to be out a while. They're on bye this week. Josh Palmer is probably the pickup there. DeAndre Carter might do a little bit better, but I think Palmer's more of a direct replacement for Mike Williams, assuming that Keenan Allen is back.
All right, John, time for the Sleeper sneaky start of the week. Sleeper is one of the fastest growing customizable fantasy football platforms in the industry. Head to sleeper.com or download the latest app today. John, I managed to do that. We're going to add a little style, a little flair to the Sleeper sneaky start of the week. So I don't say sleepy. But, John, as much as I'm smiling, we're having fun today. I noticed that once again, you decided to pick on my Atlanta Falcons with your Sleeper sneaky start of the week. It's
Yeah, I was
infuriating.
looking.
It really is.
I was looking through the list and I was like, oh, the Falcons 32nd in adjusted fantasy points allowed to receivers, and we
Of course
have
they are.
DJ Moore with a breakout game last week, with PJ Walker looking pretty good. I mean, he looked pretty
Yeah,
good last week. He threw some
he
nice
did.
passes. So maybe he's turning the corner in this offense a little bit. Anyway, the matchup's what it is here with the Falcons, and Moore is like very likely to see 9 or 10 targets. I with McCaffrey gone and Robbie Anderson gone, like I don't know how you're not targeting him at least 10 times per game. And if you look at PJ Walker, he's got a pretty good yards per attempt, yards per target when targeting more. Historically, it's over 7.1 something. So if he's getting 10 targets on average, he's going to catch about 70, 71, 72 yards. That's good. And maybe he gets a touchdown. Then how else are they going to score? I guess they could run the ball a little bit. They did well last week. But DJ Moore against your Falcons is my sleeper sneaky start of the week.
Nice. All right, let's get into some of John's sneaky starts now. Of course, we would like to remind you, 4for4.com is where you're gonna find John's complete sneaky starts article when you're looking for DFS plays or some streaming options. Great. John's 4for4.com article is where you want to be. But we like to highlight a couple of guys, just give you a little appetizer on the podcast. So we will give out a couple per position here, John. And we'll start off with Daniel Jones at the aforementioned Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah, this has some shootout potential, this game. It feels like this one could be a high-scoring one. Seattle's 26th in adjusted fantasy points allowed to quarterbacks. The Seattle offense probably should be able to put some points up on the Giants. So, I think this could be a kind of a mini shootout. I'm getting questions. I don't think there's a lot of believers out there in Daniel Jones. I'm like, why is he ranked so high? Why are you ranking him ahead of Dak Prescott? And that's a valid question. I think historically you would go with Dak, but I think the Cowboys are going pretty run heavy right now, and they didn't throw the whole ball a whole lot, and I don't know if they'll have to against the Bears either. So back to Jones, he's the fantasy quarterback 9 right now, 17 points per game. He's averaging 49 rushing yards per game, 0.43 rush touchdowns per game. And Seattle's averaging 262 and 1.4 touchdowns allowed to quarterbacks. Kyler Murray just ran for 100 yards on them in week 6. So I think this is setting up to be a pretty good spot, especially with Mahomes out, Justin Herbert out, fantasy managers looking for some spot starts. I think Daniel Jones is a really good one.
Let's get to Michael Carter now. Michael Carter, running back for the Jets. He, of course, steps into, or he should see, heavy production here, or heavy usage with Breece Hall out for the year with the torn ACL. Of course, they acquired James Robinson, but it might take a minute for James Robinson to get familiar with the Jets playbook. So Michael Carter does seem like a really good start this weekend.
Yeah, this is, as I fondly call it, the finding an apartment, looking for an apartment week for James Robinson. Unlikely to step into a big role here. Long term, I'm a little bit worried about that. Robinson hasn't been highly efficient the last few weeks, but he looked good to start the season. So we'll see where he's at once he gets installed into the offense. They did go out and get him, and it does seem like they want to run some sort of committee here with Breece Hall. Really tough break for Breece Hall managers. He was trending up and looking for like an RB1 for the rest of the season. As for Carter, it's not the greatest matchup. The Patriots, although they did lose to the Bears somehow at home, they're third in adjusted fantasy points allowed to running backs, which is not the greatest matchup. But Carter, you're expecting your sneaky starts. You're looking for somebody to step in and get some touches for you, and he will get some touches. He's seen at least 9. There's 15 games where he's seen at least 9 carries. He's averaged 14.5 touches for 71 total yards and 0.4 touchdowns. The Patriots have given up an average of 133 total yards, 4.34 yards per carry to opposing backfields. They haven't given up many touchdowns, but they've given up some yardage. So I think you're looking at a decent game from Carter. I've got him ranked as like a low-end RB2, high-end RB3. In a week where we're short, he's somebody that's definitely going to see double-digit touches.
And then we'll wrap up with the tight end position, and Harrison Bryant makes a lot of sense on Monday night with David Njoku, who we talked about in our injury roundup, John. he's likely to miss. So Harrison Bryant now steps in as the number 1 tight end for Cleveland.
Yeah, you would think so. You'd think that Njoku's going to miss and Bryant is a safe start. Tight ends in general are a little dicey, especially that first week. You wonder if he's going to see Njoku's usage, but Bryant's been playing a lot of snaps, even with Njoku. So it just is a matter of growing his role, not creating a role for him. And he's been pretty productive. He had 65 catches for 1,004 yards and 7 touchdowns as a senior at Florida Atlantic. And he won the John Mackey Award as the nation's best tight end that year. So he does have some talent, just kind of been stuck behind Austin Hooper, Njoku on that depth chart, and has his chance now to shine. And we do know that Jacoby Brissett likes to target tight ends. I think we talked about this on Wednesday. He targets the tight ends at a very high rate. So hopefully that continues for fantasy managers that do start Bryant this week.
All right, and then we'll wrap it up with the Breakout Receiver Model. This is a model that you and Sam Hoppen of 4for4.com put together. And when it comes to wide receivers who might pop this week, John, who do you like?
Actually, it was me and Kevin Zatlukal.
I'm sorry, Kevin.
It's okay.
If you're watching, Kevin, I apologize. I had Sam on the brain because we did the podcast on Wednesday. Sorry about that. Thanks, John.
Kevin's brilliant and did a great job helping me with this model. Just want to make sure he got props for it.
Absolutely.
And Sam's doing a great job too. No disrespect to him. He joined after this model had been created. Yeah, he's doing a great job with all his charts and his models. As for our breakout receiver model, a few names that are interesting that are popping that look like they're in good situations this week or better situations than maybe the previous week are Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy. I think Russell Wilson, maybe as bad or as disappointing as he's been relative to his career averages, he's still better than running Brett Rippon out there. So I think in theory this is a good spot for Sutton and Jeudy. They've definitely been underperforming their usage. Darnell, Mooney, in general it's a bad matchup this week against the Cowboys, but he's got a pretty good matchup in the slot. So I think he's got a chance there to make some big plays. He runs most of his routes out of the slot, and that's where the Cowboys have been a little bit vulnerable. And his role has been increasing as the passing attack has been kind of cut loose a little bit there for the Bears. I mean, we're not talking Chiefs or anything, but we've gone from 15 or 20 pass attempts to 25 or 30, so that's good. Josh Reynolds, if he's healthy, he's interesting. G.J. Chark remains out. Jameson Williams remains out. Amon-Ra St. Brown likely back. DeAndre Swift may be back, but Reynolds would be running as the wide receiver 2 there. He had that knee injury last week. Very disappointing day. Khalif Raymond had a big day for them. And if Reynolds is out or limited, then Raymond is a very interesting sneaky start. But if Reynolds, he played a full complement of snaps, just didn't do much with them. So I think if he's prior to that, he had been pretty productive for the Lions. I had him in my starting lineup for one of my leagues pretty consistently. And then Adam Thielen, I think he might see some TD regression. So everybody was talking about Thielen not being able to continue to score at the rate that he's been for like the last 2 seasons. And I look at that like, okay, yes, maybe he's got too many touchdowns relative to his receptions and everything, but maybe he's also just really good in the red zone and is going to catch a lot of touchdowns. He has been a little bit quiet this year in terms of his touchdowns. So I think maybe he gets back to his mean or his, close to his mean. And I call that regression. So, Thielen kind of flying under the radar right now as a low yardage red zone threat who hasn't caught a lot of touchdowns yet, but maybe this week he gets in.
John, great stuff as always. You can follow John at his Twitter handle at 4for4_John, and that's located right there at the bottom of the screen. I'm at Anthony Stalter, and of course at 4for4_football. And when you look at 4for4.com, make sure that if you're checking out all of John's rankings, don't forget about the Sneaky Start article. Don't forget about all of our DFS articles that we write, betting. We've got it all, John.
Yeah, and I want to mention that Halloween sale. Big price cuts. So go check it out. I think through Halloween, October 31st. You can get a Yeah, it ends on October 31st. You can get a big discount on the remaining rest of season subscriptions and 75% off. So go get it.
Yeah, I mean, if you've been on the fence at all, I mean, make sure that now's the time. Now's the time to check it out. Maybe you've been you've been listening for a while now, and you like John's advice, or John's helped you, with some things. Great. Make sure that you check out that Halloween sale. It ends on Halloween, October 31st, and as John mentioned, it's 75% off for the subscription. So it's fantastic value. John, have yourself a great weekend.
Dare I say, it's spooktacular.
Oh man. Did you just go? You went dad joke. You went dad joke.
It was right there. I mean, you said fantastic. You could have said spectacular.
That's John Paulsen. I'm Anthony Stalter. We'll see you next Friday on the Most Accurate Podcast.